The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Valley, hooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good, where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and robots, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting premiere podcast, Debut Hollywood. And here's your artificial intelligence, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Winfree. Yay!
You joke, and yet.
You're my special robot.
More than one person has accused me of that over the course of my life.
More than one person has accused you of that this week.
No, to the best of my knowledge, only the one this week. Well, dude, the week started yesterday. Come on.
Sorry, last week.
Okay, if you mean over the last 7-day period of time, I think it's still only one.
You know, it's funny. I was thinking about the whole relationship between people and computers, and it's a enter command. The computer does slavishly what you ask it to do. It won't do what you want it to do if you put in a bad command. Sure. And I'm going grocery shopping for the family, and I was given a list, and to the credit of the ex who gave me the list, most of it was pretty straightforward. It was by eggs, bread, milk, whatever. But there's stuff she's doing for a recipe on there, and it was 2 pounds, and she literally had to have copied and pasted from this recipe. So it's just 2 pounds of pork sausage. And I'm looking at that, and I'm just, and again, because I am also half computer, I'm more cyborg than computer. You're full computer. I'm cyborg. So I'm looking at this, and you could see the Apple beach ball on the top of my forehead, and I'm going, 2 pounds of pork sausage. Does she mean links? Does she? Other people would call this autism, but does she mean links? Does she mean ground sausage? What does she mean here? And that got me thinking about I will as the computer, I will do as commanded, but you have to enter the right command in. If you enter a bad command, I just stand there staring into the distance.
Yeah, there's that old Futurama bit where Fry is dating the robotic Lucy Liu.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just them repeating the same compliments to each other over and over again. And one of the observers goes, and someone goes oh, isn't that sweet? And one of them goes, no, she's stuck in a logic loop and he's an idiot.
That would explain a lot of relationships I've been in, both romantic and otherwise. Anywho, what are we talking about tonight there, sexy?
I was slightly off the beat there when you brought that up, another relationships, and then hey, wait a minute. They're slow on that. Tonight, everybody, Mark and I are talking about The Creator.
Yes, sir.
Because I've been wanting to get up here and preach to you about my religious beliefs for quite a few years at this point. I'm kidding. I know I just got somebody with that, though.
Welcome to Robert's Thoughts on Mormonism. We've waited this long to do this. This is a long con. It has been a 9-10 year journey to get people invested in this podcast so Robert can go, and now my secret Mormon plan.
Secret. We are talking about the Gareth Edwards sci-fi.
Sorry, we have an audience of artificial intelligence tonight because I just got this comment. I feel the same about lists. I need specifics. Yeah, no shit, right?
You are not alone. Specific lists make everything easier.
Indeed. Yes.
So Mark and I will be taking the position of the robots for the sake of
as we are wont to do.
Well, believe it or not, no for me when we get more seriously into the discussion, but that'll wait. So again, we're talking about Gareth Edwards. His first crack as both writer and director, but he kind of emerged. He broke onto the scene in Hollywood with 2014's Godzilla, which I very much enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. He's the person responsible for the only decent Star Wars movie post-Disney, Rogue One.
The only decent Star Wars thing post-Disney.
Yeah. So
I will
quick,
include everything they've done on TV too.
That's fine. The creator is a 2023 American science fiction film produced and directed by the aforementioned Gareth Edwards, who co-wrote the screenplay with Chris Weitz. It stars John David Washington of Tenet fame and Black Klansman, Gemma Chan, Ken Watanabe, Sturgill Simpson, Allison Janney, and Madeleine Yuna Voyles in her film debut. After a nuclear detonation in Los Angeles in a war against the artificial intelligence, an ex-special forces agent is recruited to hunt down and kill the creator, who has developed a mysterious weapon with the power to end the war. Or as the critical drinker said, she's the key to everything.
No. Look, stop me if you've heard this one before, but a rough loner male finds a young girl who's the key to everything, and they have to go on a journey to solve everything.
Hollywood, completely out of ideas.
Well, hang on.
Before you hang on me. So he cited Apocalypse Now, Baraka, Blade Runner, Akira, Rain Man, The Hit, and E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial, and Paper Moon as sources of the film's inspiration.
I got about 3 of those.
It came out September 29th. We're just getting to it this week, and we wanted to make sure we talked about it. So here we are.
So my brief hang on there is, at this point, gruff man who's lost everything finds young girl who's the key to everything and reminds him why life is worth living. It's basically its own archetype.
That's okay. The other thing I was thinking about this was, so you can see it in the graphic up there, and we'll talk about it when we get to the plot synopsis, but there's this doomsday, one might even call it a Death Star weapon, and the third act of the film is the hero trying to blow up the Death Star weapon. And the whole time I'm thinking, the pitch meeting, you're doing a Star Wars, aren't you? This isn't a Star Wars. It's totally a Star Wars.
It's a little bit of a Star Wars.
It's a little bit of a Star Wars. Before we get going, I did want to. The film deals with, as I said when I read my little brief there, that
Wiki TM. It is its own chapter in the list, so in our timestamp list.
I wanted to talk about artificial intelligence and its as it's been looked at throughout the course of fiction, because this isn't a new concept. I know people right now are struggling with the idea of artificial intelligence and ChatGPT. Jesse and I touched on it when we reviewed Black Mirror season 6. And more specifically,
speaking of things done by AI that are way past their expiration date, Black Mirror.
There was an episode of Black Mirror that dealt with deep fakes and shows written in real time by artificial intelligence and
poor Selma Hayek going, doesn't my asshole have rights?
doesn't my asshole have rights? I need that on a t-shirt, Mindy. Anywho, so but I want to.
I figured you just any excuse to talk about Selma Hayek in
and her asshole.
Terms.
Yes.
Just in gross terms, you were going to take that.
No doubt. But we do need to talk about how I said something to you off. We can start the discussion here. I said something to you off air about we're going to technology ourselves out of existence. That is the paranoia that we as humans go through. People who think about these things deeply, they think about what does the ease and grace of mechanization do to human existence? Because at the onset, the belief is when you make machines will make things easier. Certainly, people sitting down at desks copying the Bible by hand was made easier by the invention of the printing press. And it put those people out of business. This cycle repeats itself.
Okay. inevitably what we have is sort of I'm going to break this down into kind of the binary here, because this is more complicated than that. But if we're discussing the talking points, you basically have 2 points of view, and these are the 2 points of view that have existed on this topic since someone looked at the wheel and went, "Hey, mechanical advantage."
Yeah.
You have the people going, "Ooh, technology, allow us to make everything easier." And then you have, they weren't always called this, but nowadays the most common term for them is the Luddites. These are people who, during the Industrial Revolution, bear in mind how long ago that was, some 200 years, going, no, we don't like windmills or steam engines or the cotton gin, or they went around and they smashed up machinery. And
Sure.
because, no, we must consider, we don't like this.
Let's look at something more modern and something I brought up 1,000 times. Brought it up when we discussed season 2 of The Wire. I wrote an entire article on it with my dad. This is my most proudest achievement ever for 411. Low bar.
Well, A, yes, very low bar. 2, you only reference it every other, once every 4 months.
There's new people watching. But we talked about how the cycle of machines, computers, etc., replacing the workers, and the workers then going, the people that own the machines or the plants or whatever, talking about, okay, but then who buys then the stuff? The job pays the people buy the stuff. When you create a machine that replaces the people lose the job, they don't have the money, they can't buy the stuff. And this is the constant problem. Now, new things get invented, new jobs get created, and then you have to have an entire population of people that have to require new skills. So again, you didn't always have, computer information protection, in information security people. That had to be a skill people learn, and it became a high-paying skill. But eventually that's going to get replaced too. So the point of this is that at the very beginning of all things, there's always the fear that something mechanical will replace the person, and a displaced person is a dangerous person. Just look at the last 10 years of angry, displaced people not knowing why they've been displaced, but certainly real angry about it, and looking to a person in the world talking about, who sympathizes with them and gives them excuses that are not true for why they were displaced, and then they follow them around like the Pied Piper. I don't want to get into it.
Well, hang on. Allow me.
May not be true.
Look, just for the record.
Mm-hmm. I'm really being vague for a reason.
Allow me to be specific, because I fear not the consequences.
Oh my God. I don't want to do an hour on this, is my point.
We're not going to do an hour. Okay. But to the point that this is a universal fear. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
For the longest time, and I've talked about this recently a fair bit when it's come up, because it's come up. For the longest time, there was an assumption about the kinds of jobs that would be taken by automation.
Now I know where you're going with this. I'm now not afraid.
Okay. You trust me, Mark. I am apart from Jesse, I am the only person you trust on this network.
It's fair. Go on. Make your point.
There was a belief for a long period of time about what kinds of jobs would be taken by automation.
Mm-hmm.
And this led to this has been true across, again, throughout the history of technology making work easier. And the problem has been, part of the reason this is a universal fear is we've reached a point with elements of automation where jobs people were 10 years ago. Let's flash back to 2013, Mark, a happier time, a better time, perhaps.
Sure.
We just started podcasting, right?
Yep.
You and I together.
Mm-hmm.
Things haven't fallen apart yet. Take that however you want. Have not fallen apart.
Mm-hmm.
If I sat down with you, Mark Radulich, and said, by the way, Mark, in a decade, in just 10 years period of time, writers and actors will be throwing a giant hissy fit because machines are coming for their jobs.
Yeah, for people listening, are like, wait, where are they going with this? Essentially, you had a great swath of unskilled labor that displaced giant swarms of people with machines.
Yeah.
And then you had the educated upper crust of people going,
hang on.
Well, you had educated people going, well, they'll never come for my job. I'm an educated person. This is unskilled labor.
Personally, this has been my observations for the moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the educated people saying that.
It is in some cases. But
hang on. I'm not saying what the distinction I'm about to make is not exclusive to education.
Okay.
It's actually my observation again. It's much more the art hipster crowd.
So the point being,
and look, do the elites look down their nose at everyone? Yes,
sure.
Yes, they do.
So
but
the point being, a lot of that, people who thought that machines can't take the job of an artist. They can't take the job of an educated person with a skill.
You can't lay out a comic page with AI. You can't write a movie script with an AI. You can't digitally create an actor with an AI. Hey, guess what?
And in the year of our Lord 2023, they found out they can do all those things. We are at a tipping point right now of machines being able to do just about anything. Anything Mark, that humans can do.
Hang on, that's been coming for a while, and it will be the
it has.
Hang on, please stop. I'm making a serious point.
I know you are.
Two things.
We have an audience, and I need to be entertaining.
I'm aware of that. I prefer to entertain with something actually thought-provoking, whereas you... This is why we work.
This is why we work together there, Brett. Let's go.
It's true. There are two things that, when automation comes for them, are going to essentially herald the end of society as we understand it. And believe it or not, I'm dead serious about this. Two things that you start putting robots to do, and everything has to wildly reorient. You intimated the first one, physical intimacy. Because, dude, look at the number of displaced men right now to begin with. And I don't mean jobs, I mean like societally.
Oh, no. What you're talking about, like the incels. You're talking about like people who just have opted out of dating. Like, I don't want to spend another 20 hours on that.
I'm not trying to.
But your point is a good one. When virtual reality or artificial intelligence can replace physical intimacy, and you don't know the difference, that's the end of men dating. I have been saying that for years.
Hang on. Even if you can't tell the difference, if you're just close enough, like men will delude themselves.
Sure. Given the horrors of dating that are out there, both for both men and women, this is not like a sexist thing. It goes both ways, but we're just focusing on men right now. Given the horror of dealing with the dating world and what's out there, if there's a viable option otherwise to get your needs met and you don't have to go through any of that, they're gonna flock to it like moth to a flame.
I saw again one of the
that's the end of humanity. That's the end of reproduction.
Hang on,
reproduction.
Hang on, no, I saw a meme about that, and I'll get to my second point because again, there's one other thing that's going to do it.
Yep.
And especially if we have these two things in concert. But the meme I saw was it's a play on that Watchmen panel. You know, the world will look up and scream, "Save us," and I'll look down and whisper, "No."
Right.
It's a bunch of women screaming up, "The machines don't love you," and the man whispering down, "Neither do you."
I am getting myself in way too much trouble lately, so go on.
I just knew you'd appreciate that. But the other, again, getting away from the jokes, the other thing that when we replace is going to wildly reorient everything is when self-driving trucks, when we can move goods. Like,
I drove a truck for a little while, and an 18-wheeler, and that was about the time the self-driving cars were being more known in the news. This was 2007, 2008, and I can tell you, when I was sitting in like CDL class, there was a palpable fear of this entire industry is going fucking belly up when all of us can be replaced by AI, and that's coming.
Yeah, my dad drove a truck for 30 years, give or take, something like that. And it is, I know it used to be, I think it still is, driving for a living in that capacity is the number one source of employment for college educated men. Sorry, for high school educated men. If you have a high school diploma but nothing else, if nothing else, you can drive for a living.
Right.
Taking that away, I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm saying you have to be very careful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very powerful force. And so if we take away like pretty much the lowest common denominator job, and I don't say that to demean anyone who drives for a living.
Right. The source of the highest employment for unskilled labor.
Yes. If you take that away, and at the same time you happen to couple with an ease of a facsimile of human interaction.
What about like construction? Like another one is construction. Again, I work in correctional healthcare, and a lot of the people that end up getting arrested because they're on drugs are also people who work in construction. And when all of that can be done with machines, you take away driving and you take away physical labor, building, and then what do the men do?
Well,
and
it's not just the men. It's what does anyone do who doesn't know how to, who's not at a higher. I mean, because even the people who code, like you can get AI to code.
Right.
Dangerous proposition, but you can do it.
The relationship to the creator, which we need to start getting into, is as follows. There's already been, if you look at like the Terminator movies, it's probably the best example. And this comes up every now and then. There's always an article out there like we gave artificial intelligence X amount of commands, and it came, and very quickly came to the conclusion that all humans must die. That's in popular fiction, and that actually happened.
A lot.
A lot.
Well, look, if you want to know how stupid we are about this, we as a species, I'm slightly more like, believe it or not, between Mark and I am the more optimistic one about humanity's future in this respect, which is an odd reversal of fortune, but there we are. Because Mark and I have talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to know how stupid we are, years ago when this was more theoretical, there were two consensuses put out. Like you want to generate again, it's something approximating an AI chatbot or something like this, right? A machine learning artificial intelligence. There's only two things you really don't want it to do. You don't want it to know how to code, so it can't replicate itself, and you don't want it to have access to the internet. And the first things we've done with these things, we use it to help code because it's very good and very fast. And everyone complained that the chat, they were trying to, you could use it. In fact, you can, if you know how to do this. You can take ChatGPT or Bard or whatever. It's actually a better version of Google. If you know how to parse the information being given to you, it's genuinely better at it than the random search engine. And everyone was complaining, like, I can't get real-time up-to-date information on this thing. Please fix that. I'm like, well, it can code. Now let's give it the internet. And oh boy.
Yeah. So
this is Pandora's box in some respects.
So the idea that not only is mechanization going to displace humanity, and an angry humanity tends to create destruction, is not only a real thing, but also a constant theme in fiction for at least the last, I don't know, zillion years.
Depending on what you want to consider fiction, far back.
But the other thing that the movie deals with, as we start to slide now into the plot synopsis, is the fear of the other. So, another thing, and we don't need to get into this topic, but just so people understand, this movie kind of takes on as its theme like immigration, illegal immigration, people being displaced by other people, being very tribalization, being very much afraid of the other. And I was thinking about this while in the shower today.
You're going on to the Shower Thoughts subreddit, huh?
That's where I belong. I was thinking about this earlier. I'm sure it is. I was thinking about this earlier, how in order to win the war, you must see the enemy as something less than human. And and war makes monsters of us all. And so when you start on the path of this thing is a threat, this thing has to be eliminated, and now I have to see this thing as something that needs to be destroyed. I have to dehumanize it, objectify it, etc. These are all real, palpable, tangible problems that humanity is dealing with right now, and that is what the creator gets into.
So, in that, just very briefly on that same topic,
and then go into the plot synopsis.
Yeah. So it turns out this has been observed. There's scientific literature on it. If you don't want to take my word for it, feel free to look it up. I'm not spewing this off the top of my head. I have researched this a little bit. Turns out one of the only things our brains are good at is categorizing. Our brains are very weird, but one of the things they're good at doing is categorization. You want to know the only category that matters to your brain as a general rule? It is us and them. That is.
There's a George Carlin bit that really sums this up.
Hang on.
No, wait. Okay. There's a George Carlin for people watching, trying to like follow the discussion and like, this is interesting. They're losing me half the time though. George Carlin said it best. Okay, if you really want to understand what we're getting at right now, he said, if you eliminate every single person on the face of the earth, save one guy, that crazy motherfucker will attack the mirror.
Sort of, but hang on. Let me get to my point really fast here.
Go ahead, and then keep going.
So, again, we have us and them. If you're the kind of sick person who thinks us has some sort of ethnic or racial component, you are dead wrong. This has been studied and observed. There is no component to this. Us can be anyone. Them can be anyone. That's why it's so dangerous. Because anyone can be them. And there's a weird thing that happens in the brain, neurochemically. Once you start recognizing something as them, you don't see their one of the ways we identify each other as human is facial recognition. Not just individuals, but like, oh, you have a face. You are human. Like this is one of the things we do. It's one of the ways we process. It's why, babies need to look at faces a lot because it's part of their developmental. They need to recognize what people are. Turns out when you stop seeing the faces of another human being, you stop seeing them as human, and you can do anything to that.
Yeah, we've learned throughout the tragedies of histories. Yes. All right. So the creator.
So the creator opens with John David Washington and his wife, who is pregnant, and they are living in New Asia, as opposed to Old Asia, which is slightly more north. This is New Asia. And the big thing going on here is, again, we've had artificial intelligence. It was being integrated into society. Everything was going swimmingly until something happened and a nuke got dropped on Los Angeles, which, for the record, probably improved Los Angeles.
Okay, critical drinker. Why don't you just say his fucking joke? And then give him a dainty hand job.
First of all, he was not the first person to make the joke about nuking LA being an improvement.
I believe his exact joke was, it drops a nuke on Los Angeles and it cures the homeless problem with authority or something like that.
I'd heard his review, but I'd forgotten that joke.
that legit popped me.
Oh, that's a pretty good one. But then there's been a nuke that's now dropped on Los Angeles. And, well, everyone goes, okay, so AI, that ain't good. Because that's what led to this. We trusted the machines with the thing, and the thing blew up. And that's not good. So now we have a war on the thing. We have outlawed the thing, and we've declared war on it. And we're coming to Afghanistan. I mean, Iraq. I mean, New Asia. Because this movie is...
Dude, I was getting Vietnam vibes.
Vietnam location, but if you look at...
No, but even like the way the Vietnam War was fought and everything.
Hang on.
But
what's the inciting incident? The inciting incident is essentially a terror attack. Like Vietnam.
I get that, but go on. But the aesthetically New Asia feels like, and the way they were fighting and everything felt very Vietnamish, especially the way characters were talking to each other. But again, I don't want to Alexis your plot synopsis. So go ahead.
No, that's okay. Well, part of that is because a good chunk of this takes place in New Asia is like Southeast Asia up through like Nepal.
Mm-hmm.
So there is deliberately evocative. I'm pretty sure part of it was supposed to take place in Vietnam. So
yeah,
But anyway, we're fighting this war now, and the evil Americans are coming over to try and stop the AI, and they're trying to kill the creator of advanced artificial intelligence, a gentleman codenamed Nirmata. And John David Washington has been inserted behind enemy lines, and he's undercover, don't you see? Trying to find where Nirmata is and then kill him, and that'll be basically the end of things. Right? Because, we got Osama bin Laden and everything worked out.
Yep. The war on terror ended when we killed Osama bin Laden. That's how that went down.
Indeed. And right around the start of the movie is a military raid on his house and his pregnant wife, and he's like, hey, what the heck? And everything goes sideways, and his wife hears him say, call off the attack, you idiots, you're blowing my cover. And she goes, you told me you were out. She points a gun at him, and he goes, listen, that's not what happened. And then more bullets and then she tries to get on a boat, and they're all trying to float away, and the big F-off Death Star machine in the sky drops this mini nuke on everything.
You're doing a Star Wars.
A little bit. And then we flash forward 5 years.
Might as well have called it fucking Alderaan.
Then we flash forward 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And now John David Washington is not really trusted by the military because he was in too deep.
And he went native. Let's not forget. He was not supposed to fall in love with the target.
And yeah, again, he's not fully trusted. They think he's holding out information on them. He now works as a garbage man cleaning up radioactive material out of the LA crater. At which point he and his coworker go, of all the jobs they didn't want to automate, we could give them this one.
That was a great line.
But he's eventually approached by a nefarious general and a colonel, and they want to get him back in action for one more hurrah. And he says, you know what? No, I don't care. I'm like, but don't you understand? If they've developed a weapon, and if it destroys our most advanced weapon...
If you've ever seen the reluctant hero trope, this is it.
Oh, yeah. This is Colonel Troutman coming to the Buddhist monastery. And
yeah.
who are those people
do we get to win this time?
Who are those people with you, Colonel? Well, she's CIA, and he's an extra.
For those that don't know, that was a Rambo reference.
Well, yours was Rambo.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's Hot Shots. He is lured back into the service with the notion that his wife is actually alive somewhere behind enemy lines. And he goes, all right, fine, I'll do it because I want to see my wife. And my life's kind of a shambles, so he is deployed with a bunch of people. They go to a location. They try to find a thing. He finds the thing. He finds the big weapon, only it's not really a weapon. It's a small child that's actually a robot.
It's the key to everything.
She's the key to everything.
She's always the key to everything. She is always the key to everything.
So
Hollywood, completely out of ideas.
So the little tin child is dragged by John David Washington across different points through New Asia as he's trying to find Maya, and they're running from the American authorities. They're trying to hide from the army and officials in New Asia who want to get the child and will kill him for being an American. And we play John David Washington's favorite game, don't get your best friend killed by the police. Which, yeah, that's a line in this movie. It's not very well written.
Yeah.
Eventually, they make their way around and are found by Ken Watanabe, who was a friend of John David Washington's when he was behind enemy lines and undercover. So they find him after they find his old contact, who's gone native himself and has fallen in love with a robot.
Like you do.
Like you do.
We warned you people.
And we learn a little bit about, they call the child Alfie. So we learn about Alfie as this robot slowly transforms into Michael Caine. Very obscure reference there, but I'm proud of that one.
Well done. Well done.
Could have said Jude Law, but the original's better.
Move it on. You got your well done. Here's your cookie. Move the fuck on.
So we learn a little bit about Alfie. Alfie can control whatever the plot demands. She has the Force.
Yeah.
She's the first Jedi. Is what's going on here.
Honestly, like they were this close to just letting it be Daisy Ridley, and she's fucking, and it's just Rey.
They really were.
Like in another universe, there's a movie where they were just like, "This is a Star Wars," and it's Rey, who he's John David Washington is dragging.
Rey
around.
who, Mark?
Rey, fucking Palpatine, Skywalker, toast, peanut butter.
Rey toaster oven.
Rey pansexual Peter Pan peanut butters.
What a series of words.
I was that's a gag from about a month or two ago where I was going around telling people that's the name of my new band, the pansexual Peter Pan peanut butters.
Okay.
I could see the tumor in your head.
Given the crowd you were saying that line to, I'm sure it went over quite well.
Yeah, 50-50. Go on.
Yeah. So that goes badly. They try to find, again, there's a bit of a misdirection where they're trying to find Maya again. They're jumped by people, and again, we find Ken Watanabe here, who kidnaps John David Washington and Alfie. And he expresses to John David Washington that all we want is to live in peace. Don't you understand?
I almost don't want to wait for the craft review, but his line about if you had just left the artificial intelligence alone, things would have been fine. I almost threw my pants and the old lady next to me at the screen. I was like, that goes against only everything we've ever known and written about and fear about artificial intelligence. That is a hackneyed line written by somebody going out of their way to make you feel sympathy for the people he wants you to feel sympathy for, except that it doesn't track with anything, including internally its own movie. It drove me nuts.
It is. It's really stupid, and I'm going to yell about it later.
Yep, please do.
He says, it wasn't really the AI that launched the nuke at Los Angeles. It was a coding error. So it was humans, not machines.
The hell of a fucking coding error.
Look, it's a stupid line. It's a profoundly stupid line.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of great things about this movie, and we will talk about it momentarily. But there are also some dumb as a rock things about this movie.
But Alfie has kind of started to bond with John David Washington a little bit, and she helps him escape. They go to one of their bases, where we get a little bit of information about what's going on. They have to get Alfie onto the big Death Star in the sky. Because in theory, after enough time, her power will grow to where she can hit it from anywhere and just be done with the Death Star. But the Death Star is coming, and they don't have time for that, so they have to get her up there and get her to shut it down, and then they will all die in a glorious crash and have 72 virgins in heaven. I don't know.
But we do know that Scarlett Johansson will fall from the Death Star and just brush her shoulder off.
Yeah, she's gonna just tuck and roll.
Into an ordinary drinking glass. Observe.
The army shows up. There's a big fight. It goes badly for all the machines. But the long and the short, and Alfie gets shot, and they take her to Maya, who is, it's been revealed is actually Nirmata. And well, she's up in the mountains of Nepal at a robot Buddhist monastery, or Robuddhist monastery, if you will.
You motherfucker! I can't with the god damn it.
I don't know what it is about this movie that's making me punny, but it is.
Okay, Zach, move on.
So we get up to the monastery, and here we find Maya, but she's in a coma and has been for 5 years. And they're doing death will let her move on to the next phase of life, or we can scan her brain and put her into a machine, something like that. We don't know. They say the robots just say if she dies, she can move on. Whether they mean that spiritually or they have an actual plan to, again, scan her brain and then stick her into a robot, who knows. And John David Washington goes, then why have you kept her alive for 5 years? And they go, you don't understand. We simulacrons cannot hurt the Autobots or the Nirmatas. We can't hurt the Nirmata. Like, really convenient writing, douchebag. We get an emotional farewell with, and it's also revealed along this way that Alfie is the, God help this stupid point, is the brain scanned, developed embryo that Maya was carrying before she was in the bomb that caused her to miscarry, and again she wound up in a coma. So theoretically what we have here is comatose woman, John David Washington, human, and their robot offspring.
Mm-hmm.
And we get the tearful goodbye, and then the army shows up, and then a bunch of people die. And John David Washington scans Maya's brain right after she dies, and now in theory she could be inserted into a robot. But they're all captured, and John David Washington briefly tries to spin this as, look, the Nirmata's dead, and you have the weapon. See? We did a good thing. Please don't kill me. And they go, yeah, you did a good thing. We're not going to kill you. And they are able to hack into all the other robots and find out the locations of all the other AI facilities around the world. And the Nomad, the big Death Star, is going to launch various strikes at them. So now the clock is ticking, and John David Washington pretends to kill Alfie. And why anyone falls for this is beyond me, but they do, because they're stupid. Then they stage their heroic escape. They get on a space shuttle. They're going to the moon.
To the moon, baby!
I don't know that reference.
Fucking, what's his nuts from NXT with the long hair? Cameron Grimes.
I was going to say, what's his nuts from NXT with long hair is not nearly specific enough.
Cameron Grimes. To
Not
the
on it.
moon!
No, he's not on NXT anymore.
So, did he get fired?
No, he's on SmackDown.
Nobody watches that.
In theory, he's part of the roster I cover, but he just never shows up.
There you go.
So Alfie drives this space shuttle to dock with the Nomad, and there's a big to-do about a bunch of missiles launching, and some of them land and some of them don't.
And so here's where John David Washington has to do a trench run and fire the 1 in a million shot into the porthole.
That is not how this goes.
Oh, sorry.
That is not how this goes at all. So he plants a bomb on one of the missiles from this thing as Alfie runs inside and messes with the power with her psychic. She uses the Force, and it all works out. And then they're trying to escape the exploding Death Star, and they can't get the pod open, so John David Washington shoves Alfie in there and says his tearful goodbye, lets her go, and he wanders the exploding facility and finds a robot body that has the likeness of Maya that Alfie had seen earlier, and she'd plugged in the USB port, but apparently it was USB-C instead of USB-A, so it took a while to line up properly. But Maya's a facsimile of Maya's mind is now in this body, and they get to link up as the Nomad explodes. It falls from the sky, and miraculously, this enormous piece of machinery falling out of the sky lands on no one. Miracle of miracles. And we see Alfie being sad about her parents dying and then happy because robots are free to now exact their bloody vengeance on humanity, because that's how this is going to go. And that's where we are. And I'm sure people will be asking for a sequel. I'm kidding, because this movie's not doing all that well financially.
No. All right. So what's good about this movie?
Okay. The studios will not be asking for a sequel.
So what's good about this movie? People are now like 43 minutes. Like, are they ever going to like review the movie? Yes. Here we go.
Here we go.
And the positive one's going to go first. So this is a gorgeous movie.
Yeah.
This is going to be on the short list of movies nominated for awards. It might be nominated for Best Picture. It won't win, but I think it'll be on the list for Best Picture, the kind of the same way James Cameron's Vanity Project Avatar 2 was. Like, we need an inclusion of something pop culture that isn't mind-numbingly stupid.
So then why did they include Way of Water, which is in fact mind-numbingly stupid?
And we had that discussion, but stay with me now. This is a gorgeous movie. Film is a visual medium. Take a drink every time I say that. Throughout the years that we've been doing this. This movie is going to be my new standard for why something doesn't look as good as this. See, this movie, we'll talk about the money later, but this movie had an $80 million budget. 2 points related to that.
One, we've reached a point in cinema and inflation where 80 million is a movie on the cheaper side, which is tragic in so many ways. Second, this is my go-to. Like when we're gonna watch the Marvels next month, and I'm going to spend a long time going, why does this $300 million catastrophe look worse than the Creator?
Drunk during the Marvels. I'm gonna be shit-faced going into that review.
No, you have to watch the movie while drunk. I want you sober for the review.
I'm gonna drink during the movie. Anyway, so this movie is gorgeous. The cinematography is the star of this movie, as is the special effects. The effects on the robots, the artificial intelligence, and the battle sequences is very well done. It's seamless. It looks gorgeous. The landscapes in this, the vistas, all of that look amazing. I think it would be a misnomer to say this is an original science fiction piece. It's only original in that it is not an established IP, but it is yet again another one of these movies that kind of took a list of things like Asimov, Heinlein, just took a list of things that exist in science fiction and popular culture and said, all right, this is the movie that I want to do. Much like Rogue One, Star Wars Rogue One, for people that don't know, it did a really great job of melding the concept of the 80s war picture, Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, Hamburger Hill, etc., and merging it with a science fiction aesthetic so that you get this really interesting futuristic war movie that asks pertinent questions about our paranoia and fears regarding artificial intelligence and robotics. That's what's good about it. The Critical Drinker had made the point, for those that don't know, Critical Drinker is a well-known YouTube reviewer.
If you're watching us, you probably know who he is.
Some people are watching for the first time. So he's somebody that we tend to watch. Don't always agree with him. Robert agrees with him more than I do, but I tend to agree with him more often than not. And one of the things that he pointed out was, which I think bears repeating because not all of it does, but one of the things that he mentioned was that this is a lot of well-worn territory.
Yeah.
And it it brings up really important, interesting, thought-provoking subjects. And then just as fast as it brings it up, it leaves it. So it kind of throws it out there. And he criticized this, but this didn't bother me because I kind of prefer it this way. He throws the ideas out there, touches on them, Gareth Edwards does, and then leaves it for the audience to consider later. This isn't one of those movies. So I actually just recut TikToks out of our Candyman review. And, we had talked about how Nia DaCosta and Jordan Peele really hit you over the fucking head with a lot of the themes and political ideations that movie deals with. This isn't hitting you.
Jordan Peele is not a subtle man.
No, he's as subtle as a fucking rock to the face. This is fairly subtle. In the sense that it's subtle by comparison.
Yes. By comparison, this is very, very deft.
Again, is he taking the point of view that artificial intelligence should not be this thing that we fear and run away from and go back to the Stone Age? Sure. Beyond that, he's kind of letting the audience consider things, but he's also, and I think this is to the movie's credit, something I disagreed with the drinker on. I think to the movie's credit, not ruminating of the philosophical elements regarding technology and moving the story forward was a very crowd-pleasing craft decision. People are not going to this. I think people have just enough patience for you to touch on it, and then you got to move on, or you're going to lose everybody. We are not people who go to the movies to think deeply about things. So you bring it up, touch on it, move on to the next thing, show something blowing up, rinse, repeat, everyone's happy. The movie effectively does that, making it a fairly enjoyable experience for me. It's too long. This needed to be cut down by about 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, this is what? Is it just over 2
hours and 13 minutes, and it needed to lose about 30 to 45.
No, hang on. I'll stick up for this. I'm not disagreeing with you that it's too long. Cutting 30 minutes out of this might be a stretch. You could easily shave 15, though. I think that's true.
I will meet you at 15 to a half an hour. Okay. A half an hour to 45 is probably too much. 15 minutes to a half an hour, 20 minutes. Let's settle on this. Needed to lose about 20 minutes of film.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
I mean, I'll even settle for lose that extra 13 minutes, once titles and all of that. Anyway, moving on. John David Washington, I think, gives a solid performance. It's nothing special. He is adequate.
He's a solid overall actor.
I'm
curious to see what he. It's weird because the two movies that we've seen him in where he's been given action portions of it, he's handled himself well as an action star.
Yeah, at least he didn't yell, "I'm the protagonist" this time.
Hang on.
Sorry, I tweaked your nipple. You're like the only person on earth who loved Tenet.
That is one, that's not true. But second of all, he didn't scream, "I'm the protagonist," because it wasn't in the script.
Fair. Anyway,
which is kind of surprising considering everything else Gareth Edwards wrote in here.
It's true.
I was desperately waiting for Alfie to go, "Don't you want to call me Mary?"
Sue. John David Washington gives a serviceable performance, perfectly adequate. He was asked to do a thing. He did the thing. Plus or minus, there wasn't much else there. I don't have a problem with it, but it's also nothing special. I got to talk about the kids' performance. Again, we have a kind of an unspoken rule on here: don't beat up on kids.
We try not to, unless it's horrible. We try not to bash them.
And even if it's horrible, it's like this poor kid is kind of the take on it. See our Haunted Mansion review. She actually,
boy, I wanted to be meaner to that kid, and you just wouldn't.
We would not let you. I know people really watch this. People watch this, and they don't talk to you. They talk to me about it. So yeah, we're not beating up on children. But my problem with the kids' performance is that it's also perfectly serviceable. There's not much to that character. That character is a giant talking MacGuffin.
Yeah.
And all the bonding that takes place is John David Washington overcoming his anger and frustration and trauma, and it being actualized through bonding with this child. But this child might as well have been a teddy bear. The kid is not given it. The kid does her level best with what she's given, but she's not given a lot, which is unfortunate. Now is as good a time. So, for people just like, is there anything good about this movie? Should I see it? Yes, because movies are a visual medium, and this movie looks gorgeous, and you should spend time watching it, watching this marvelous piece of art unveil itself in front of you. And you should watch it because it touches on subjects that are pertinent to our time, and we should think about these things. And this movie is a good conversation starter. That doesn't mean it's perfect, and welcome to Damn You Hollywood, where we point out the imperfections. So the biggest problem this movie has is the screenplay, the actual, some of the dialogue. Yeah. This movie is mad tropey. We talked about that already, but it bears repeating. It is literally like a fucking checklist of what are all the things we need to put in this movie that people can readily identify with as being familiar in science fiction action movies. This list, okay, make it all in there. And unfortunately, you can do that, but if you handle it with some depth and imagination, you can kind of fool the audience into thinking you have an original idea. When you do it,
been doing that for 20 years.
When you do it this way, it just kind of comes across like a fucking buffet. We're just like, oh, here's this. We have a plate of food. Let's go get fat.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. The screenplay's a problem.
That line about, I gotta say this now, and so we can kick it around a little bit. That line about, if you had only left, we didn't drop the bomb, nor did we start the fire. It had always been burning. But also, if you had just left us alone, you know what we would have done? Nothing. Bullshit. Okay, yeah. I've seen Terminator. We've all fucking seen Terminator. Okay, you know that if you let it, and again, we joked about this before, but it's totally true. Every time, if you don't apply Isaac Asimov's laws of robotics to things, which
has more than its own set of problems.
It always comes to the same conclusion. Humanity has to go. We are an imperfect virus. It's something I was thinking about in the shower, where I do my best thinking. About how, and don't get your gander up and jump up and down. Let me complete this thought because I'm going somewhere with this. Yeah, thank you. I was thinking about the debate we have in this country over climate change, and there is man-made climate change. We are doing things that absolutely have an effect on the climate, but then there is also natural climate change, planetary movements, things changing in the atmosphere.
As a minor aside, to your point here, the climate that we currently exist in is not the same climate that the dinosaurs inhabited. And we weren't around, and there was no there was no industrialization. It still changed. That's what it does. To the extent that, look, have humans had an effect on it? Yes. It seems impossible that we wouldn't. How much of an effect? What do we do about it?
The problem
these are the relevant questions. The
Right.
problem becomes the people talking about it. You have two sides. You have the one side that says, no, the climate's not changing. You're all crazy. Those are idiots. And you have the, hey, let's level every building over 2 stories tall and we'll all go back to horse and buggy.
Yeah, it's the people wanting to go back to the Stone Age. And so we can't have a rational debate about a very serious problem because it's been utterly politicized. And so relative to this movie, the movie gets into that kind of a thing. This idea that humanity will lose sort of all sense of propriety, all sense of rational thinking, and everything gets compartmentalized, everything gets polarized. Where have I heard this before? And now we're just down to the other side's wrong, let's kill them. When people ask me, like, I tell them I have a podcast, and like, well, what do you podcast about? Oh, we do movies and television reviews and a little bit of boxing. They're like, oh, okay, blah blah yakety schmackety politics. Like, do you ever talk about that? And I'm like, well, kind of, but through the guise of film. Through that lens, I don't do a strictly political podcast anymore. I used to, and then the line always follows. I stopped doing that because it became about polarized sides trying to make the other side submit. No one was having a rational adult discussion. So I'm willing to engage with on a new number, and I have, but I've engaged with people like Robert, because while we may not always agree, I mean, we have gotten into like near fist fights over certain things, but I'll have a fist fight with him. He's at least coming from a rational point of view, not my side has to win. Well, on some things,
allegedly rational.
Things. Yeah. But like, I'm willing to engage on any number of subjects with him because he's willing to be an adult about it and not just, I just want to win. And by the same token, Robert's a notoriously hard person to convince of anything, and yet I've managed to do it through sheer force of will. And
you're our Chinese water torture. You wear me down eventually.
That's why you're my best relationship. Anyway, my point being, the movie absolutely deals with that idea that we have gone past the point of rational thinking with regards to artificial intelligence, and now no one's really thinking about what to do about it. They've decided it has to go, to the point where it's like, we don't care how this affects humanity anymore. We just have to, or what it's doing to us. And I think it's a very relative thing, because again, you go back to climate change. If you use what's going on in the creator with artificial intelligence as a parallel to climate change, what experts will tell you in both cases is that we're going to ignore and fight about this problem long past the point that we're going to be able to do anything to stop the problems, and we're all going to die, or many of us are going to die. And that's what we talk about, like doomsday clocks and stuff like that. And that's why, despite its flaws, I think The Creator is a very important movie to watch because it brings up these points. I just wish, I don't know how much Gareth Edwards, and this is something we talk about a lot, and I'm going to shut up and let you kind of get your craft review in there. But we talk about the writer-director problem, where you give somebody a blank check and a canvas and say, go nuts. And there's no collaboration or not enough collaboration. And so something becomes like that person's vanity project. And maybe they're talented enough to overcome the inherent pitfalls of that. Maybe they're not. Sometimes you're Martin Scorsese and sometimes you're George Lucas. If you don't understand what I mean by that, keep watching our show. We'll let you know. But
couple of more weeks, we'll be revisiting that.
Some poor wife is gonna go to the unsuspecting husband and say, "Did you know George Lucas was film's greatest monster? Because these 2 assholes told me that on a podcast." Anyway,
I can't quite get to George Lucas's film's greatest monster, but he's on the list.
He's Tim Burton. There's a lot. My point being, I don't know how much of this was.
There are so many.
Yeah. I don't know how much of a lack of collaboration led to this being dumber than it should have been. But if there was collaboration and we still landed in the same place, that might have been a conscious decision. Like this might have been smarter, and then they were like, we have to release this to an American audience. You gotta dumb this down a bit. You got to put more of the punchy, blowy up in there. But so it's so and I go back to what got me on this whole tangent was that line about we
just wanted to live in peace.
We just wanted to live in peace. And I'm wondering how many drafts they went through before somebody was just like, just have them say that, because if we write anything smarter than this, we're going to lose our audience.
There's a decent chance. So I'm going to echo what Mark said visually. Again, visually beautiful movie. Gareth Edwards has a... So let me, a little bit of movie making commentary here, if you will. Part of the reason the crap that Marvel churns out is so freaking expensive.
We have to add us bashing on Marvel as part of the Radulich Broadcasting Network bingo card.
That's the new free space.
Yes.
Well, okay, so make it Disney more generally, and let me get through my point here. What Disney proper studios are doing right now is it's all green screened. Right? You have a few physical props to interact with, most of which are going to be digitally changed in post anyway. And you have your warehouse, and you have the green screen, and then you have the volume, and please fight in front of it, but don't move against it, so you can only move left to right whenever you do anything. Ahsoka. And so you wind up doing a lot of that. Then you have to render stuff. And then the director has to look at some of the stuff that's been rendered, all of which costs money, and go, oh, not sure I like that. So let's reshoot it. So you do another take, you do another bit with the actors, you reshoot, and then you have to re-render. And this process repeats itself, and lo and behold, suddenly, to say nothing of, well, we finished the movie. Okay, let's test screen it. Oh boy. Oh boy. We need to reshoot. Get everybody back. Further ballooning the budget. And again, lo and behold, suddenly, your 100-minute movie about the Marvels costs you almost $300 million. This is insanity. This is absolutely insane. The position and the strategy taken by Gareth Edwards was shooting mostly on location, getting everything filmed and that done, and then the whole time going, okay, I know what's going to come from where. I can see it in my mind's eye. Like I'm the director. I know what's up. So as the camera's moving this direction, the ship's going to come in from this side, and it's going to swoop through here, and so everyone knows how to react. And it provides a much leaner, more efficient means of making a movie, because while there's plenty of visual effects in this film, they got to do it all right the first time because he knew what it was going to be and he knew what it was going to look like.
You also don't stress out your actors.
True. You don't have to throw poor Ian McKellen on a green screen and make him question his commitment to the profession.
True story. Facts can confirm.
Yeah, you can find that on the DVD extras for the Hobbit trilogy.
Mm-hmm. I think we've also again another space on the bingo card. We also talked about Ewan McGregor, who after filming fucking 3 movies for George Lucas was questioning his life decisions.
Or again, George Lucas, history's greatest monster. Poor,
I'm just, God, if there's a wizard out there that knows how to do interdimensional portals, can I please I just want to go to one universe where there's no Star Wars, there's no George Lucas, and there's no Marvel movies, and just see what film looks like.
It's probably just as dumb. We just latched onto something very different.
Fair.
I'm pretty sure the trajectory is inevitable. The texture might be different.
Sure.
Okay, so I got to get a little inside baseball on this point because this annoys me. So let's talk about emotions. Might seem weird coming from me, but
I was gonna say the expert.
A little bit. I am not the most in tune with my own emotions, but there's a reason for that.
Make your point.
Do you know why you have emotions, Mark? Do you know what contributes to them? Yes?
Yes.
Your nervous system. Your emotions are regulated by a physical component of your body. It's why head trauma can lead to dysregulated emotions, because you rattle something loose in there and suddenly you can't control it. I have come to utterly loathe AI or robots going, I feel. No, you don't. There is the necessary components of what makes that a reality are not present. What you have is a facsimile. This is even dumber and discorporated AI, right? Like if your AI is just out there, it's software floating in the ether going, but I feel abandoned, but I feel scared. You don't feel shit. Neither would Mark. If you took his brain out, if you took his intelligence, uploaded it to a computer, he feels nothing. There is no physical component that drives your emotions. All you have, again, is a bad facsimile. So, oh no, the AI's grieving. No. All you've done, writing, is short-circuit something. All you've done is what largely this film is guilty of. And again, this really annoys me because one of the things we do as people is we anthropomorphize things. We give cars and lawnmowers and computers, we give them personalities. Hang on. Boats. We give them quirks. We give them names. We say, oh no, this is just a quirky little thing about this thing that doesn't work right. No, you have faulty machinery. It's not a personality. You have a piece of machinery that doesn't work right. You found a workaround. It is not a quirk. It is not a personality thing. You cannot make a machine run better by yelling at it. It's not a thing. It's a bunch of metal components. We apply our humanity to external things as a method of understanding the world. To then pretend that the only thing that a machine could do is a bad reflection of humanity is a gross injustice to the imagination potential. One of the things that took place here, for example, like they throw the army throws out a bunch of smoke grenades before making an advance, right? Someone tell me why the machines can only see light in the same visible spectrum as us. Why? Why is that a thing? Because all you can do, because all you can do as a writer, your severe limitation, is anthropomorphize and project your own limitations onto this. And it's a little bit sad. And again, when it comes to, again, the fears about AI, the fear about AI is not that it's going to become an overly emotional woman with her finger on a button and about to nuke the world. The fear about AI is that it is so alien from how we understand the world that its conclusions are utterly alien to us, utterly different, and we don't know how to deal with it. Please understand the appropriate fear here. Not, oh no, I saw a mother robot that had her child die and then she committed suicide. Like, okay, so bad programming, and why are there children robots? That serves no purpose. It's bad writing, and this is one of those things that really has gotten under my skin the more I've actually looked into how this works. So that it bothers me, and that element of this movie didn't work for me in no small part because of that. I would much rather this be a commentary on one of the defining characteristics of humanity is not necessarily how we treat each other, it's how we treat things that are not ourselves. That's right. That's a much more accurate window into the human condition and the human soul than is, oh no, we created something that's a perfect facsimile. How do you treat it? I'm more interested in how you treat the thing that isn't a perfect facsimile, to be honest.
All right.
So that's a bit of a problem. The third act in this movie, I mean, God bless it, it tries, but it falls short. Like you said, it falls into, it's not just following tropes, it falls into cliche in kind of a bad way.
Yeah. I will give it credit. You know, we talk about how there's no bravery left in Hollywood.
That's true. This is a brave movie.
Yeah. Well, they like legit kill kids. There's really great on-screen deaths in here that would rival most horror movies.
There's a guy who holds a gun to the head of a CGI dog.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see a lot of threatening of animals going on.
Look, if anything's going to cause a fucking civil war in this country is if we start killing pets. People
You're
will
not
not
wrong.
they would rather kill the kids. But the other thing is you typically, you have the Chewbacca effect that is, in large part helping to ruin film. For those that don't know, in the the Rise of Skywalker, there's a scene where Chewbacca gets on board an Imperial ship. The ship blows up. They assume Chewbacca is dead. A minute later, he shows up in another scene. Oh no, it wasn't his ship. It is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, and it made me throw a child at the fucking movie screen. It wasn't my child, by the way.
No, your children might not have cleared the row in front of you.
No, I took a
your throwing arm is not that strong.
I threw a baby at the screen, and you know what? The guy next to me was like, "You were right to throw that baby. That was a dumb shit thing to do." We were all in agreement. Anyway,
and then you immediately planned to burn down the theater and all kind of just. By the time the movie was over, you decided it had done a good enough job for you.
When my son picks up that nobody ever dies in a Marvel movie, and you might as well throw Star Wars into that, you know that Hollywood has done this one too many times.
If you've lost the 8-year-olds,
and yet, in The Creator, they killed John David Washington at the end and leave him dead as a doornail.
To the best of our wait for the sequel. I'm kidding.
Well, my point is there was a lot of bravery in this movie. There wasn't. Yeah. This was an art piece. They told their story. They made their points. They gave their performances, and when it was done, it felt conclusive. I shouldn't have to say that that's a rarity in Hollywood, but the state of film.
These days, it's a rarity.
Yeah,
I mean, they're talking. Look, we're talking about John Wick 5. Right, like that idea.
Shoot me fucking dead.
There are ideas being bandied about for that, and again, I don't know. I'm not saying I would need to see the specific idea for why he's not dead. Hang on. I'd rather he stay dead personally. I do acknowledge the possibility that a compelling story can be told, and a compelling reason can be given.
Speaking of a guy who can fall from orbit and not die, let's just leave him dead. All right. Anything else about this movie?
Yeah. Last thing, I suppose, because this is parts of this are a war movie, right?
Yeah.
We again fall into the sad, tired cliche of one side evil, one side good, and war is not that simple. We'd like to think it is. Believe me, we all wish that the version of history we were taught in middle school about, the evil Nazis and the heroic alliance was every war.
Yeah.
That's what.
Real quick, my one of my friends was in the Navy, and he was at the Battle of Baghdad, the taking of Baghdad, during the Iraq War. He was there when they pulled the Saddam statue down. He was literally in the crowd. Mm-hmm. He can tell you from firsthand experience that what they showed was very true. There were some Iraqis that were very much cheering the taking down of the statue. They didn't show you the other half of the Iraqis who were like, not a good idea. That's not what we want here. That's not what you should be doing. This is a bridge too far. To your point, that we go out of our way to not only to the victor go to the spoils, but the victors also write the history books. And every single war in the history of humanity is not as simple as black and white. And if you dig into these things, you can see the complexities of what was going on at the time and why these things are murky at best. But it is hard to teach murky. It's much easier to teach because this is how a lot of people operate. This is how a lot of people understand the world. This is bad. This is good. Everything is black and white. We need to move this forward.
Yeah, and again, I would just really rather this story in particular, this setup, like this world that they've created here, more so than most, has the potential to actually lean into and look at and discuss the nuance and duality of the conflict that's at hand. And sadly, when it matters, they don't. They lean away from that. And
that's why, like, the line should have been, look, we didn't set the bomb off, but you're absolutely right. Eventually we would have replaced you because I mean, that's just the natural state of
there's one of the
physical evolution. Like,
there's a line from one of the characters that it's subtitles like you can't beat the AI, it's evolution.
Yeah, that's actually the point that I was about to make. Like when you think about the comings and goings of species, one species just for whatever the conditions change in the atmosphere and doesn't survive and it's replaced by another species. That's just nature.
Yeah.
And that is what the movie should have said regarding AI. We are now the dominant species and we're going to replace humanity, and that's just the way it is. Because then humanity's fucking last-ditch effort to save itself makes a little bit more sense. I mean, but that's the thing, is that you should also not be rooting against Allison Janney and the humans in this either, because they're in the right to try to preserve their existence. And because the movie doesn't want people to grasp with the murky grayness of that complex idea, it just goes, no, Allison Janney went to the Avatar school of bad guys. It's like,
very much.
like, this is utterly unnecessary.
Right down to the facial scars.
Yeah.
And it's a giant missed opportunity because, look, when I watch the bigger releases, from whatever, there's not going to be moral ambiguity in Aquaman, right?
Nope.
There's going to be visual ambiguity in Aquaman, but there's not going to be any narrative or moral ambiguity in Aquaman. These big budget, Mission Impossible. Right, I'll throw another. Like, there's no moral ambiguity there. There's nothing interesting there.
Right.
And it's a movie like this that should be willing to tackle this kind of material in that way. And sadly, this movie flinched when it came down to it. So,
all right, let us then move on to my favorite part, and probably the audience's least favorite part, but fuck you, it's our podcast. The money!
We're in the money! We're in the money!
All right, on a budget of $80 million, this thing in the 2 weeks it's been out is made a paltry $62 million. This is why we can't have nice things, everyone.
Well, hang on. Here's the thing about this, before we get into the weekend and whatnot. The fact that if you're a major studio, you have to consider the following. You can spend $270 million on Ant-Man, or Indiana Jones and the Dial of Desensitization. You can spend that, you can gamble that on a movie that needs $1 billion box office to be profitable, if you want. Or you could make 3 of these, right? If the 80 million is right, you can make 3 of these for what it costs to make 1 Ant-Man. And
I think the question
your losses will not look. Hang on, one of them might hit big, and at a bare minimum, your losses aren't going to be as big.
Come on, let's be honest about this. This is a I believe it's a Fox release. Give me a second. This was 20th Century Studios distributed this. So this was the production.
That's not the same thing.
Yeah. So the production company is Regency Enterprises, and then this was distributed by 20th Century Studios, which is owned by Disney, which will eventually be owned by Pornhub. So here's the thing: they owned by Apple. Yeah, they bought this thing. They put it out. They know. I think they knew that this was. Maybe they'll have a hit on their hands. Maybe they won't. But they knew that this was going to be a prestige film. They knew this was going to. This was going to be an award winner.
Heaven knows they didn't spend any money on marketing. Like, you had to.
Right.
You had to be in the weeds to know when this thing was coming out a little bit.
Yeah, I study the calendar, so I knew it was out there. But honestly, I was almost shocked that we had theatrical exhibition. I thought this was going straight to streaming. And give it 5 minutes, it will be on. For those watching, they were just like, "Well, I'm undecided now if I should watch this movie." No, watch the movie. Go watch the movie. Yeah. Just don't. You don't need to see it in the theater. Wait, it'll be on PVOD in 5, 4, 3, 2. It's on PVOD now.
My hunch is between a decent enough box office take, and this isn't great, but between that and then whatever you can get,
this is almost a focus feature. This is almost a
Yeah,
focus feature.
yeah.
This is like a prestige, a quasi independent, snooty film. It just, but it's it's a science fiction war movie, so that's like, oof, that typically isn't like a prestige film, but this one is. But I think they knew that going in. Like, we'll just throw it out there, it'll make what it makes, and then people will go back and see it this spring when it's up for Oscar nominations. So I'm not, but the other side of that is, I mean, I made the joke about, this is why we can't have nice things.
You're also not wrong.
We'd all be better off if more people supported movies like this.
But
that's not going to happen.
Hang on. For all my griping about the specifics of this movie, I want more movies like this to exist. Right? Like, this is the kind of movie, the kind of creative process that went into it, the kind of artistic vision and storytelling chance. This is the kind of movie I like to be out in the world instead of your assembly line schlock.
So that being said, does it get to 160, 200 million? Probably not, especially with what's coming up.
Yeah, I'd have to double check, like, how it's doing internationally might tell more of the story there.
Yeah.
Because this is, like many other movies, this is one that, you joke that it's made for American audiences. I would actually argue it's not. It's made with a slightly more international audience in mind. The question is whether or not they'll resonate with it.
Here's my question, and we don't need to discuss it any further. I'm just kind of throwing it out there to consider. I'm typically hard on American audiences not being the brightest bulbs on the Christmas tree. But that's because I live here, and these are my people, and I'll make fun of them if I want to. But I'm wondering if we had like a European audience. I'm wondering if we had like an Asian or like European audience, or like, why do you think just Americans are dumb? We're so dumb in China. Like, we're so stupid in Europe.
Hang on.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be willing to say that. In fact, I have in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody likes it when I do. Look, when
have you been to South America? We're morons. Like, I'm waiting for someone to be like, look, general audience is general audience, and it's worldwide. Like, this dumbass is everywhere.
I absolutely believe that, but look, 8 years ago, I said, you know what? The frickin' Chinese, man, you're why we're getting stuck with Venom 2, and I hate you for it.
Yeah, and everyone turned on you and was just like, hey, you can't say that about Chinese Chinamen. They'll invade us.
Taiwan's
we are.
Country, get bent.
Anyway, The Exorcist was the #1 movie of the weekend. How I managed to fuck that up. So,
well,
just a real quick thing. I thought it comes out. I was telling Robert this. I thought it came out this weekend coming up, and we were re-reviewing it the following Monday. And no, it came out this past weekend, and I'm just like, when did that happen?
Man schedules, Hollywood laughs. Film at 11. Here's my thing about The Exorcist Believer.
Yes, which we are reviewing a week from tonight.
I've not heard a single positive thing about it at all.
Dorian saw it. He actually saw it at Universal Studios, and he'll be on the review, as I recall. And he was like, "It's not as bad as everyone's saying it is, but it ain't good neither." This was kind of his take on it.
Which is fair. I might wind up walking away from it going, okay, yeah, that sucked, but some of you people are way overreacting. Which is a thing I've said in the past too. Like,
all right. And the next movie to make $1 billion this year, Paw Patrol, the mighty movie, fell from 1 to 2.
It's not making $1 billion. Quit your joking.
It opened in 38 more theaters.
That said, only a 50% drop from your first week to your second is these days that's a relatively strong hold.
Dude, Paw Patrol. It's gonna be like Barbie, Mario, Paw Patrol. That's gonna be the top 3 movies of the year.
No, it's not.
Saw X fell from 2 to 3. The Creator fell from 3 to 4.
Hang on. Brief thing about Saw. 57% drop in your first week. That's not good, and you opened soft to begin with.
Yeah. Please stop with this stupid franchise. The Blind maintained its spot at number 5. A Haunting in Venice maintained its spot at number 6. The Nun 2, currently PVOD, fell from 4 to 7.
Dude,
Dumb Money.
They could not wait to throw the Nun onto Peacock or whatever.
So Melissa and her partner and my son went to go see Dumb Money while I took Lily to Acquire tonight, and apparently now my son has just 100 questions about the stock market.
Ooh.
He is going to be 10 in April.
He's either going to make you very proud and very rich, or you're going to have to change your name.
That is the fucking hope. Because we ain't got nothing else going on in this family. So yeah, I'm getting him an Acorns account.
Your feminist daughter is so. I will be offended on behalf of your feminist daughter.
So real quick, I talked about her on the last Metal Hammer of Doom jukebox, and
by the way, hang on. Another reason that I have no hope for the Exorcist Believer.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a line. They have I forget the actress, but the same actress who played the mother in the original Exorcist.
Yeah.
Her line is, "I really wanted to watch my daughter's exorcism, but they wouldn't let me because of the patriarchy."
Good night, everybody.
This is what killed William Friedkin. I'm fairly certain.
Did I mention this is why we can't have nice things? So we were, I was hanging out with the kids, and she said something about wanting to get her nose pierced, and I went into my whole thing about facial piercings aren't really counterculture anywhere. I don't know what you're trying to accomplish here. And I went through like the whole history of punk rock.
Kids used to wear safety pins in their cheeks. That was a statement.
Yeah. So I'm on the Metal Hammer of Doom Extra, and I'm comparing facial piercings and counterculture to the culture of moshing. And I told the story about my daughter, but I'm doing it in my me entertaining way. So I'm like, my daughter, she asked me, "Father, can I get a piercing?" And I said, "No, because you're dumb." Because she calls me father. And I was like, my daughter asked for a nose piercing, and because she's dumb, And I went on like that. So, and that is now not only in the podcast, but cut for TikTok. Okay, I made sure everyone fucking heard it. And even better, Robert Winfree of the Screaming Boy podcast, because I'm a douchebag. She goes, "Will you play a podcast on the way home? I'd rather listen to a podcast." And of course, when the kids say they want a podcast, they want to hear me extolling the virtues of movies, music, and
you played
television.
Them that show, didn't you?
And I played her that fucking show, which starts with a 20-minute discussion of my alcoholism in late teens, early 20s. And she's just looking at me like,
it goes on to my
wrong with you?
It goes on to my dumb daughter wants a nose ring.
Yep. I don't question why my kids don't want to hang out with me anymore. Anyway,
you sure you didn't get fetal alcohol syndrome vicariously? Can that work the other direction? If I'm super drunk when she gets pregnant, can that happen?
Moving on. So yes, my son, the apple of my eye, the pride of the Radulich family, now is looking to get into the stock market, and I'm like, I'm encouraging this because we don't have a lot of hope left. So let's see what happens. The other really funny thing about that, which I can't go into a whole thing about this, just pick up what I'm putting down, and you'll get there eventually. So my wife did not want to take my son to go see Dumb Money. She wanted to go with her partner and just go the two of them. And I'm like, no, my son wants to go. Fucking go. So she took him. Good for her. She did the right thing. And she comes in the room, tell me goodnight, and tell me that she enjoyed Dumb Money too. And she was like, by the way, your son has 100 questions about the stock market. You deal with it. And shuts the door and walks away. I'm like, okay then. Moving on. The Equalizer, also now PVOD, 8 to 9. Hocus Pocus, the 30th anniversary re-release, debuted at number 10. Oh God, somebody I was talking to yesterday is very excited about Hocus Pocus, and I would rather eat a gun. Just gonna put that out there. There's a lot I do for the people in my life that want to hang
Mark,
out with
I'm
me.
Getting a little uncomfortable with the amount of suicide jokes you're making. Starting to think you might be a bit more serious than.
I love my children. Expendables currently continuing to bomb. Fell from 9 to 11. Barbie 10 to 12.
Expendables, the Nomad.
Yeah. My Big Fat Greek Wedding fell from 11 to 13. Oppenheimer went up 2 points from 16 to 14. Blue Beetle maintaining at 15. Stop Making Sense 12 to 16. And She Came to Me debuted at 17. The Royal Hotel at 18. Dix the Musical debuted at number 21. Speaking of Dicks the Musical, When Evil Lurks debuted at 22, Strange Way of Life 23, Shelter in Solitude, the Robert Winfree story. Sorry. Zing. Debuted at number 2. I wasn't looking. Did you give me the finger? Because you should have. Okay. Number 24. Dr. Cheon and the Lost Talisman, 33. Mr. Organ, 34. Cat Person. Okay. They're 35. And that was the weekend that was.
We have
Barbie.
we have a very silly show, everybody, and I hope those of you tuning in for the first time understand that.
This is what friendship looks like. Anyway, Barbie, number 1 movie in the world at 1,437,000,000. Super Mario, number 2. Oppenheimer, still at 939 at number 3. Guardians, 845 at 4. Yeah, no movement at all.
Fast X, I'm going to say it again. Fast X losing money on the $704 million take is criminal. Little Mermaid continuing to bomb, not even cracking 600 million. Mission Impossible, a total failure. Also not making money. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, that just fentanyl corpse out there leaning against the Capitol building.
Still maintaining at number 2. Yeah, literally, I don't even want to finish reading through this. There's no fucking movement at all. So
and you know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say we're not gonna see a lot more movement all year. Like
no,
we've
already. Yeah,
the Marvels might crack somewhere in there, and Aquaman has a real outside shot, but that's it.
Yeah. We went through over this last week, and we'll be reviewing The Exorcist come Monday. I thought it was coming out Friday. It already came out. But then after that is Killers of the Flower Moon, all 97 hours of it. Damn you, Scorsese.
Really hoping that I said this before, man. I really hope that makes like $2 billion and just dumps all over. It's not going to, but I hope.
Yeah. And then we have Five Nights at Freddy, which is day and date on Peacock. And then there's nothing coming out on the 3rd that we care about, so we're skipping a week. Then we have the Marvels, the bane of Robert Winfree's existence. Then every girl's favorite movie this year. This movie will end up cracking the top 10 because everyone with a vagina, apparently, over the last fucking 40 years is going to want to go see the new Hunger Games movie. I know you're just like, oh, this has no appeal. Really? Talk to girls, because every woman on Earth apparently is in love with the fucking Hunger Games.
I
don't understand it either.
No. I mean this is like a sociological experiment. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Well, not experiment, but there's a bunch of stuff out there that I don't like, but I understand the appeal of, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that's a lot of stuff, and I accept that. I'm me. I can even sort of understand the appeal of, especially in hindsight, Avatar 2. Like I can kind of get the appeal there.
Yes.
Not to the extent.
Come on.
There is absolutely no level, emotional, logical, ethical, moral, that I understand the appeal of that franchise, especially 10 years after the last movie.
Here's what I'm going to tell you.
And hang on. And I would like to know, if for no other reason, my own intellectual curiosity.
I have an answer. I have to talk to somebody about this. So I've mentioned before, my girlfriend, Sarah, like over July was like, what is a way that I can like reach you, be a better girlfriend? What do you need me to do? And I, being a man of giant ego, was like, watch my podcast and talk to me about it, because that's kind of all I care about. She was like, when her head exploded and then reformed again, she was like, okay, sure. And I sent her a bunch over the past year or two, especially since we've been on video, that were easy to get off of YouTube and quick sender. I'm like, hey, here's like 20 of the best conversations I've had over the past year. Listen to them and come back to me and let's talk about it, because this is the shit that I care about. And then as time has gone on, she's like, oh my God. First of all, she has a huge crush on you, by the way. She's just like, you're the bee's knees. And you're supposed to say,
I don't
thank
believe you, but okay.
Trust me, I hear about it often. So say thank you, Android.
Thank you, Android.
Perfect. But so over the course of time, we kind of like run out of things. I'm just like, listen to this now. we're kind of getting into like, well, did you do this? Did you do this? Because I'd like to actually hear your thoughts on something I enjoy or I've watched at least. And apparently one of her favorite things ever is The Hunger Games. And so I sent her The Long Road to Ruin that Sean and I did. And she sends me like voice message feedback, which is great. You know, like it's like a little mini podcast. I'll listen to them in my car. And the last piece of feedback she wanted, she's like, I may have called you an asshole once or twice. I was having a moment. Because I said something, and this is the point. What is the appeal? The appeal is, and we've talked about this before, that yes, women are closely associated to the romance genre and tend to chase, you know, stupid comedies and romance and, you know, and apparently fucking murder mystery documentaries. But that doesn't mean they are.
Hang on, as a brief aside. So, listening to a review channel, sort of review, but it's a couple of sisters, and they're talking about the David Fincher film Zodiac, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the opening their bits from their intro is, you know, we have plenty of, you know, other girlfriends who are big into true crime podcasts and whatnot, and I can't do
true
it.
crime, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Well, hang on, and they, so they go, and I can't do it. I've tried, and you know, we're giant sissies. Hang on. They get to the end of Zodiac. And despite one of the very prominently displayed post-credits title cards being DNA evidence exonerated so-and-so, they go, yeah, he totally did it. Like, no, you are totally the true crime female demographic.
What year did Wonder Woman come out?
The first one?
Yeah, yes, the first one.
Well, because the other one I'm led to believe came out in 1984. Bad joke.
Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, you jackass.
Well, again, the sequel was Wonder Woman 84, and that was 2020, I think, or 2021. Hang on. The original would have been, it's post Batman v Superman.
What, 2017?
16, 17, I want to say.
Okay.
So I'll look it up while you make your point.
Okay, so girls want to see themselves in hero roles. They don't want to just see them reflected through romance. They don't want to see themselves reflected in comedy.
Record, 17.
That's what I thought. Talk to a girl. They also want to see themselves reflected in any number of places that men want to see themselves reflected in. Except that the mistake that Hollywood tends to make is like, well, we need to make this for women. And so instead of making the kind of thing that would appeal to guys, just featuring a lead woman, they make what they think would appeal to women, and it bombs every single time. Because what they don't realize is that women like stuff that men like. They just want to see women in the lead roles.
And here I was led to believe that Jennifer Lawrence was the first female action lead.
Anyway,
no, point that at her, please.
No, she gets a pass because of no hard feelings. Anyway, the point being,
you have the weirdest emotional.
The point being that that the Hunger Games was one of those deals where Katniss is a very relatable character for a lot of women, in the sense that, and this is the way it was explained to me by Sarah, you have somebody who is really just trying to live their life, take care of their family, but sees the greater good and ascends to that hero role to do the greater good. And isn't that a laudable thing and something women would aspire to be? So it's nice to see somebody who looks like them doing that, and something for them to aspire to too. Katniss is an inspirational character. So albeit then the Hunger Games is one of those things that has this wide appeal. Also, you got to remember, and you know, it was Chris Rock who said it best, anything that you were listening to around the time that you were getting laid is what you'll listen to for the rest of your life. It works the same way with movies and television. If in the informative developmental stages of your life, you know, your late teenage years, your early 20s, the stuff that you saw then stays with you forever. And so when you see it come back, you're excited. It's like almost like seeing an old friend. You got to remember, the Hunger Games is what, 20 years old now? And we're talking about 40-year-old people here.
Hang on, let me check because let me check when the last movie came out, actually.
So you see what I'm saying? While you're doing that, though, do you see what I'm saying about?
I do.
Like, if you were in a late teen, early 20s.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the same thing with the fucking Harry Potter movies.
Hang on.
Like every time I get one of these Harry Potter nerds want to tell me how great this fucking series is, you know, and okay, so I've now talked about eating a gun way too much on this show. I want to punch a baby, and it's like, okay, but I get it. It's my Star Wars. It's my Lord of the Rings. It's my sentimental, emotional attachment to a thing that I liked when I was a kid.
Okay, for the record,
but that sort of thing never goes away. It's an embedded part of our culture. It just changes over time because time moves forward.
Okay, for the record, the first Hunger Games movie came out in 2012. The last one was 2015.
And God help you if you read the books, because again, same thing with Harry Potter. People read the books, and the books.
I did read the books. Like, well, look, hang on. I told the story. Like my two youngest brothers were like early, maybe like preteen, around that period of time, or like very early teenage, and that's when the books came out, and they were like, "Hey, pop culture phenomenon in the reading department." And my mom threw them at me and said, "Make sure these are appropriate for your brothers."
Right. So my point is, look, the Hunger Games, 1, not a girl. 2, didn't read the books. 3, I was well older. If it was 2012 when the first fucking movie came out, that's 11 years ago. I'm 36. I am well out of the demographic for the Hunger Games. So yes, I have no sentimental attachment to it. You have no sentimental attachment to it.
I have no. You know what kills me about this in these discussions? I've realized this about myself.
What about you?
I don't have sentimental attachment to anything, like any pop culture thing. And girl, hang on.
No, that's not true. We did a whole 2 hours on Devilman Crybaby, and you were very attached to that.
No.
Yes.
Hang on. I found it interesting. I don't know that I was necessarily attached in that way.
Yeah, I was there. You got your sentimental attachment all over me.
And hang on. And more importantly, I don't know. I wouldn't consider that pop culture.
What the fuck else would you consider an anime?
I don't.
Yeah, I get.
Hang on. No. Okay, no. I know where. I see where the problem here is between the points we're making. I have a pretty steep divide in my head, and as far as what constitutes pop culture,
you over compartmentalize things. Like
I do. Hang on, I do, but the barrier here for entry into pop culture, in this respect, for me at least, is popularity. If it doesn't actually make a big enough impact, is it actually part of the popular culture, or is it subculture?
Yeah, for most mortals, that they don't need to make that distinction. Okay,
most people would benefit from thinking about these things slightly more than they do.
See the first hour of our podcast. All right, then we have Wish. Every single one of these is going to like win.
Can I just tell you? I finally saw the full trailer for Wish.
Yeah. Are you as not excited as I am about it?
I was. The original teasers, right? I was loosely curious, like, when it's made clear to me that the premise of this entire story is there's an evil man who has the power to grant wishes and doesn't.
Is that what the
and
premise
now
is?
What?
Is that what the premise is?
Yeah, they're members of this kingdom, right? And the king has the power to grant wishes. So everyone arrives at this big ceremony and they give him their wishes, and he chooses which ones get granted. Yeah, you're reaching for booze. I know you are. And I don't blame you. Like, as soon as I saw the actual
trailer, remember in Harry Potter when Dumbledore is getting Snape to do something and Snape goes, "I don't want to do this." That is how I feel about Wish.
The supreme
I was gonna say no. I'm gonna beat you to it because the supreme irony of this is I'm the one that makes the schedule and I'm usually the one making everybody else do this shit.
Yeah, you're not just Snape going, "But if I don't want to do this anymore," did you think about that? You're also Dumbledore going, "Yeah, but I know you, and I know you're gonna do the right thing."
Yeah, no, I am a slave to the schedule and the format, and so we have to talk about Wish. But I would rather throw myself into traffic. Oh God. Well, we'll have Alexis there. We'll just make her do all the talking, and I'm going to just drink a lot.
Yeah, I saw the actual trailer for that and went, okay, I know exactly. This is dumb. I know what we're doing.
So then we have Napoleon, and then We're taking
apparently
a break.
Ridley Scott is working on a 4-hour director's cut
Oh,
of
hot dog.
Napoleon for Apple TV.
All right, then we have Wonka, and then we have Aquaman, and that's it for the year. So yeah, the whole point of me reading off the calendar was we have a lot of one and dones, but and maybe the Hunger Games, maybe Aquaman crack the top 10, but to crack the top 10, you have to make more than fucking Ant-Man at this point, and that's only 437.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. I mentioned this before. Here's the problem your Hunger Games prequel is going to run into, and I mean this in all sincerity. Rachel Zegler has negative PR equity.
Nobody that's the audience for that movie gives a shit.
Hang on. They're going to after the fact. They won't going into it, but one of the reasons I have doubts about his leg.
But by then it'll have made money. This argument makes more sense for Snow White.
Well, oh no, Snow White's going to crash and burn.
By the way, so there's a girl. Okay, I have to use her code name for the time being. There was a girl who I've just started dating, and who we will refer to on the show as Red Hot Mama, who I was just kind of like sending her stuff to generate conversation. We were having a back and forth, and I sent her the fucking production still from Snow White with the various dwarves of ethnic varieties and sizes.
Mark. They're not dwarves.
Right.
They're not dwarves.
Shit. Right. The 7 friends of Snow White.
The seven
ethnicities.
The 7 forest spirit friends or whatever stupidity.
No joke. She was like, "Is this for fucking real? Or did you grab this from a porn site?" I'm like, "No, this is an actual still from the movie."
Well,
but she's not wrong. Is my point.
If we're talking production quality, no, she is not.
If with no other context and it being available in no other places, like not on Twitter, nothing, you just uploaded that production still of the 7 friends onto Pornhub, no one would question it was from a Snow White fucking porn parody. Not a single person. And half of them would be like,
you'd have to crop the female out of it because her dress would give it away that it's not.
Okay. And with that, folks, we bring you to our...
Once again, tell me I'm wrong and I'll apologize.
I never do. All right, here it is, the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
All right, and here we are. Yes?
I was looking at the numbers like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah. All right. It's got a 67% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes and a 77 audience score. We go to top critics. It drops it below 53. That
tracks. If you're hypercritical, it goes down.
And then the all audience score drops it. Yeah, it still remains fresh.
Negligible.
Yeah.
Again, that's about what I'd expect.
All right, so the AI says visually stunning and packed spectacular.
The AI says consume product and get excited for next product.
Thanks, Jay. The creator serves up timely, well-acted sci-fi that satisfies the moment, even if it lacks substance. Ooh, I would not say it lacks substance. We've been talking all night about what substance it has.
Oh, hang on. I'll defend
it lacks
that.
It lacks narrative ingenuity.
Here's why I'll say I'll agree with the sentiment here being presented. It's badly worded. It's not, the creator doesn't, it touches on things of substance without saying much about them, which I think is, so to the question then becomes, does that mean it lacks substance, or does even touching on it constitute providing it? And again, that's a slightly more debatable point that I'm happy to leave that. I'd phrase that differently, but I understand the sentiment being expressed.
All right. Excellent performances and fantastic visual effects make the creator an entertaining watch, and the questions raised by its thought-provoking story will stay with you after the closing credits. And once again, the audience thing.
The difference between the critics and the audience. Yeah, again.
Yeah.
That's about right.
That's why we do this segment, everybody.
This, if I wanted to be uncharitable to this movie is a stupid person's idea of a smart movie.
It's fair. Speaking of stupid people doing smart things, Lauren
We are.
Veneziani of DC Film Girl, like Detective Comics or District of Columbia?
Don't know.
I genuinely don't know the answer to that. John David Washington is incredible as our lead in this sci-fi thriller with an emotional core.
Incredible's a stretch. He's above adequate, but he's not incredible.
Sarah Vincent of Cambridge Day. Centering an American character in a thinly veiled story about the Vietnam War would have been cutting edge back in the 1980s, but in the 21st century, it feels regressive, slack, and inert. Get her, Winfree.
If the only thing you got out of this movie was a Vietnam parallel, I invite you to reconsider the last 20 years America spent mired in endless war in Afghanistan and Iraq. This draws much more closely to that than the Vietnam War, apart from the setting, which is, again, for chunks of this movie, Southeastern Asia.
All right. Let's see if we can find some of our friends.
We don't have friends, Mark. We have victims.
It's true. Walter Chaw of Film Freak Central. I'd be lying if I said I didn't laugh every single time Joshua screams Alfie. That's not helpful.
How is that in any way a useful portion of your review, sir?
Yeah. I legit thought that said the Taco News. And I would have read it if it had. Let's see. Robert Dennerstein of Dennerstein Unleashed. I rooted for the creator.
Okay, no. I'll say the thing for that one. You self-employed loser.
Thank you. I rooted for the creator, hoping this latest futuristic extravaganza would be a major addition to the big screen sci-fi canon. Although the movie comes close, it ultimately falls short.
Yeah, that's not unfair to that's kind of what we said. Like, with this premise and this cast and even this director, there's a much better story here that could have been mined out.
Marianne Johansson, a flick philosopher, looks great, but the plot falls apart if you poke it and makes no attempt to grapple with AI's potential. Instead, it renders its robot people as racialized other in a clunky metaphor for bigotry. I mean, kinda, yeah.
Yeah, that's not wrong.
Carson Tamar of Budded Popcorn. Ugh.
Which is not good for you.
We've been doing podcasts and we've been doing movie reviews since at least 2014, you and I, and we've tried so hard and we've done so many things, and yet we toil in obscurity. But Budded Popcorn gets to be on Rotten Tomatoes. I did my thing now.
The injustice of it all is just staggering.
I don't even know why we keep going. The creator has all the technical elements. The creator has all the technical elements needed to be a masterpiece, but lacks the voice and focus needed to actually do something worthwhile with its potential, leading to a mixed effort that, while passable, is far from revolutionary. That's about what we said.
Yeah, that's about right.
Richard Lawson of Vanity Fair, top critic, Vanity Fair. That's radical.
That vaunted rag that is useful only for toilet paper that you use on dogs.
The creator is sleek, but thoughtfully so. It's impressive, but humble. The film is so risk hyperbole, a true vision, a filmmaker reasserting their unique talent for spectacle.
You, sir, are desperate for anything approximating genuine film from years of Marvel movies, and I weep for you.
All right, we'll read a few more of these and we'll call it. Robert Winfree's grandmother, Susan Granger of SSG Syndicate. Gareth Edwards and his cinematographers create stunning sci-fi, but basically it's style over substance. A plethora of gritty man versus machine fighting sends viewers into a superficial stupor.
I don't think the stupor that this film renders, to the extent that it does, is superficial. I mean, this is the benefit of touching on genuinely thought-provoking ideas. You do leave a significantly greater impression than, hey, I'm Ant-Man and I just got big and punched Kang through a wall. All
right, we're gonna end this one here. David Fier of Rolling Stone, top critic. Again, Rolling Stone, former magazine.
Didn't they used to talk about music?
They used to. There is the slightly conspiratorial sense that the team behind this trip down movie memory lane simply fed the scripts of various canonized sci-fi epics into an AI program and waited to see what the sort of composite it would spit out.
I think that's pretty unfair to the writers in this instance. It's kind of sad that we've entered this phase of film criticism and whatnot where everyone's going to be going, wait a minute, was this AI generated?
Oh, good.
I-
Is this AI generated? Is the new Trumpy?
You know what? You're not wrong, and it'll probably stick around longer. Hey, that was Jeff.
That was Jeff, but I don't care.
Just saying hi to Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. I'm just seeing if I want to close out this segment because I want to be done close to on time. However, I want to see if our friend. What if this was too much movie for our friend?
Oh, there's no way Kevin Carr saw this. He went to look last week.
He saw Paw Patrol.
Last week he watched Paw Patrol, then he watched The Exorcist. Then this is so far down the list of his priorities.
One last page here, then I think I'm done. I don't see any of our normal people here. Did everyone just fucking avoid this movie?
Bet you they didn't know it was coming out. Benefits of advertising.
Yeah, like I don't see any of Alexis Hannah's husbands. I don't see any of your. Oh, look, Grace Randolph beyond the trailer. Let's see what old Gracie has to say. A stunning cinematic achievement and an instant sci-fi classic. A must-see.
It is not an instant classic.
What Gareth Edwards is able to deliver for just $80 million should be a wake-up call for an industry where blockbuster budgets are out of control with little bang for their buck. Well, we did say that.
Hang on. Last sentence, 1,000,000% correct. Yeah. This is not a classic, I don't think.
As much as I enjoy screaming the Mary Sue at you, I'm not going to read it.
All right.
Oh, look, there's Dan Murrell.
Instantly goes past him.
Alexis isn't here.
Isn't he the guy you're still angry at, or is that somebody else?
Are you talking about from Screen Junkies or the radio guy?
Yeah, the radio guy. Sure. Let's go with
that. Would be. Oh my God, what's his name? Well, I'll know when I see it. Yes, I'm so angry at him for not letting me speak. Nope, no Kevin Carr.
Yeah, well, folks, not surprised.
That is our review of The Creator. Cut the beat with your hands. Tomorrow we will be myself, David Wright, Jesse Starcher, and Alex Sedano of the Thanos and Warlock podcast. We'll be reviewing Good Omens season 2.
Good Omens.
And I'll tell you what, I had sort of a narrative dramatic whiplash today. I finished Good Omens and had myself a good cry. There's a line at the end of Good Omens about nothing lasts forever, and it's in reference to a relationship that has come, centuries long relationship that comes to a bitter end. Two people are just in two different places in their life, and they cannot come together, and instead they fall apart. And they love each other, but that love is not enough to sustain them, and so they go their separate ways. And I couldn't help but relate. So I had a good cry. And then I watched Ahsoka, and then I cried for a different reason.
You cried for a very different... Watching...
Then I cried for the state of fucking television.
Then you watched Rosario Dawson wait 3 seconds between each line of dialogue, have the emotive potential of a wooden plank, and desperately try to keep up with a woman who, despite being 15 years older, is a lifelong martial artist and knows how to move around with a weapon.
Ahsoka sucks. You heard...
It really does.
You heard me, Chris Bailey. Right here, pal.
Oh, he heard you.
He heard me. Anyway, so yes, I will be talking about adult television tomorrow, Good Omens, with my buddies. And then the children will discuss Ahsoka Wednesday night with Alexis Hannah.
Neither Mark nor I were invited to that show. You can guess why.
Oh no, I got asked, and I was like, "Fuck off! No, thank you."
You should have done it, dude.
I will bring nothing of value to a review of Ahsoka.
That's not the point. You go there to disrupt. You go there because everyone else is going to be all flowery and, hey, this reference is a cartoon I watched 10 years ago.
I don't want to mess up the children's good time.
You've got no. You've got when you have reached about the stage I've been in for the last 10 years where you're kind of grumpy about everything. Part of the joy of reaching the stage where you're grumpy and you don't care anymore is making sure that you let everybody know what you think and that you don't care that they disagree with you, and just ruining as much of what they're doing as you can.
If I may count you with 4 simple words, I have a date.
Real world things do trump the online every time, and that's fair.
Moving on. This weekend, the canned hams
pre-record your thoughts and send them to Alexis to air.
Awesome. with visuals. Various Cannibal Corpse covers. Well, I'm taking my son to go see Cradle of Filth and Devil Driver because I'm a good parent. We will also be airing. I'm gonna be re-airing the Long Road to Ruin on the Blade trilogy. Oof. And then Sunday, Metal Hammer of Doom Sunday is Whitesnake, the Purple album. Next week on Damn You Hollywood, we
do all
The
about
Exorcist
sex.
Believe. Speaking of all about sex, after The Exorcist Believer on Monday, myself and Jesse Starcher will return to The Deuce, season 2. And then
I assume that has nothing to do with sex. I genuinely have no idea. I've never seen it.
You've never seen The Deuce? Yeah, it's about the rise of the porn industry. No joke.
Was not aware of that.
And then myself
I
and
gave
Alexis,
you a perfect segue and then ruined it.
And then myself and Alexis Hannah will be reviewing season 3 of Only Moitas in the Building. All right. Show us what you pissed from, Robert Winfree.
So I should warn you. I'm going to tell you something that I shouldn't tell you publicly. So
is it about my failed marriage?
No.
Oh, just wondering.
So you hounded me for a little bit about, you didn't hound me. You lamented to me that we were unable to review the Barbie movie on Damn You Hollywood. Like that you and I were unable to review the movie. You talked about it with...
do we really want to discuss this publicly? We have friends who listen.
Hang on. I'll tell you. You said when it was done that you just really wish you and I could have talked about it because you thought we would have an interesting discussion. This is not uncommon. I have had many discussions with other people that I've very much enjoyed that I also kind of go, I am curious what Mark would think about that. And then, we wind up talking about it, etc. Well, it turns out you're not alone because a few people I know said, hey, so did you review the Barbie movie? And I threatened them with physical violence. But I think what came out of that was me going, okay, wait a minute. For the first time in the history of our podcast, the market is actually speaking. There is a force telling us that there's some kind of an audience for that movie review. And I had to think to myself, what would it take? What is a reasonable thing that you could say for this? And I went, you know what? For $70, I'd do it.
70? It's a very specific number.
It is. So to anyone out there who wishes to contribute to this, tell Mark, throw money at him. You get to the right number, we'll do it.
Okay. Do an on trial for Barbie.
You sure you want to give me the prosecutor's chair for that one?
No, you get to be the defender.
Your Honor, defense arrest.
We'll take the death penalty. Thanks.
Your Honor, I move, Mr. Hutz. You're not wearing any pants. Your Honor, I move for a bad court thing. You mean a mistrial? That's why you're the judge.
Thank you, Lionel Hutz. All right.
I would totally Lionel Hutz that if you make me defend the Barbie movie. But anyway, as far as my work, you can find me over at 411mania.com in the wrestling and MMA zones covering it. I half got asked to cover Raw tonight, and I was unable to do so because here I am.
Because you're on a date with me.
You want me to tell you how much I get paid to review each episode? And you have to send me that much money when I do this.
Fuck you. I'm not... Look, if I've told hotter women than you, I'm not sending them any more money, so fuck it off.
But my relationship with you is so much more fulfilling than theirs.
You're not wrong.
But anyway, you can find me again reviewing professional wrestling and MMA over at 411mania.com in the wrestling and MMA zones respectively. I do MLW stuff on Thursday, and what a slog that is these days. And WWE SmackDown on Friday, which a little up and down. We seem to be rebounding a little bit. And we had a couple of down weeks. We had a couple of real down weeks. Last week, a little bit more on the upswing, and UFC events on Saturday. If you're interested in the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts, I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. This last episode, we reviewed UFC on ESPN Plus 87, featured a pretty significant upset in the main event, actually. And I talk about all of that, and I preview the upcoming event, UFC on ESPN Plus 88. We're basically just turning machinery over as we wait for UFC 294 in not this Saturday, but next Saturday, when we're back on pay-per-view. The UFC's back in Abu Dhabi taking blood money, and we've got a darn good pay-per-view card. So I'm very much looking forward to that. If you are, this coming episode will preview the pay-per-view in no small detail, so tune in for that if you're so inclined. Next week, Mark and I think Dorian, as he mentioned, we will be burying the Exorcist Believer because yeesh. Just yeesh, Mark. And as we all wonder, why oh why is it so difficult for Exorcist movies to actually work so often?
Real quick, I chose to not go to the party swinger house this Saturday. And everybody else was busy and on dates, and so I decided to do a little something for me, a little me time, and me time always involves Robert Winfree. So he and I covered a boxing event on DAZN. It was Zerdo versus Ramirez, and
no, same person. Zerdo is the nickname of Gabriel Ramirez. He was fighting Joe Smith.
Joe Smith Jr. Sorry, Zerdo. I'm tired. Zerdo versus Joe Smith Jr. And I did the first half of it by myself because that fight went on an hour earlier than it should have. But Robert came in at the end in the ta-da nick of time. So yes, boxing coverage slowly but surely returning back to the network, as I don't feel the need to constantly not be at home anymore. So I'll be home a little bit more on Saturdays to cover some big time boxing events. The next one we're doing is Tyson Fury versus Ngannou. It's funny. I was like, hey, girlfriend. I don't know why I'm doing that. Hey, Sarah. Like, I need to cover this fight for my podcast. Do you mind if I could do it at your house? So yeah, I will put off going to see Sarah because I would rather cover Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou with my good buddy Robert Winfree right here on the Rattle Legend Broadcasting Network.
What? Hang on. What day does that remind me again?
Oh my God, Robert. It is October 28th in like the middle of the day.
I think we're okay then.
Yes, we are okay.
We double checked that earlier. Yes, I don't know why. Look, the fact that a giant portion of this podcast was a reminder that we schedule and then things change and we have to double check them on occasion. So, but
all right, folks.
assuming I don't get wrangled into anything else that night, Mark and I will talk about Tyson Fury's $20 million sparring session.
Tell them no, my love. Tell them you already have an obligation to me.
Depends on what's offered. And
don't look at me
don't look at me like that. You have the same policy and you know it.
Not the first time someone has said, I'll hang out with you if nothing else better to do. Won't be the last. All right.
There's a very small number of things that would take precedent, but I don't pretend that there's nothing.
It's fair. All right, folks. Hey, if you've never listened to our show before, you've just heard me ramble about it, and you're like, hey, I want to check out what you do.
You chose an interesting one. We appreciate you.
You chose one. You chose one where we actually both mostly like something, which is different for us, and that we weren't in a massive fight the entire time, which is also different for us. But I just want to say, anyone that I know personally who turned into the show tonight, even if it's for a little while, I always appreciate your indulgence. I appreciate your attention. I appreciate that you're interested in what I'm doing. Not everyone that I deal with is. So, it is truly one of those things that warms my heart and, makes me want to continue to do this other than I enjoy it, is to know that there are people who find that what we're saying and what we're doing interesting and are willing to spend time away from what they would normally be doing on a Monday night to hang out with us. And so I just want to say thank you. And for those of you who have been with us all this time and you listen to us after the fact, either on audio or video, do remember that we love and care about you all. And we very much appreciate you checking out our show from one week to the next. And with that said, sir.
Just giving you a hearty amen. I agree with you.
All right. So with that said, we'll be back next week for The Exorcist. Be well, be safe, and behave.